My name's Dave Allen and I'm currently the fleet manager for Cleveland Police. We have a fleet of roundabout, it fluctuates between about 360, 370 vehicles of all descriptions. We don't have any heavy goods vehicles, but we have cars, vans, motorcycles and long wheelbase, what we call protected carriers, so riot vans, you're probably familiar with that term. We have some of those. I head up a small team of 3.2 people. I'll come on to the point two in a minute. Full-time employees. We share a member of staff with our procurement team as well, who we work quite closely with, including estates. So we've been, I've just sort of reversed a little bit. My involvement with the GreenFleet process goes back to around about 2018, 2019. So I've been to a few events, mainly North East regionally, but this is my first roundtable event like this. So I'm keen to see and hear everybody else's experience and knowledge and journeys.
My role at E.ON is commercial manager, but I do pick up quite a lot of other things as well. So data and insight is one of those, and what our competitors are doing and so on, as well as trying to sort of drive and devise our strategy and our business plan as E.ON Drive in the UK. So yeah, why I'm here today I think is just so keen to hear kind of some of the challenges that you're all facing into, and so then I'm taking copious notes as well, by the way, but then I think we want to take that away and try and create some solutions to support you. And I won't steal your thunder, Steve, because solutions is your bag, but yeah, that's the key thing I think here. And we've been sort of active in the EV space as E.ON for about 5 or 6 years now.
I'm from the North Eastern Yorkshire Net Zero Hub. We are one of 5 net zero hubs that have been set up by formerly the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, now fondly known as DESNES, and set up primarily to support the public sector. So we're funded and directed as part of their local net zero team, and we exist to help the public sector to develop and implement their net zero strategies. And we do that through a kind of partnership arrangement. So we are a partnership of the 5 combined authorities and 1 LEP. From next year will be 6 combined authorities in the North Eastern Yorkshire region. And we're hosted by Tees Valley Combined Authority, who acts as our accountable body. We employ people in our partner areas to work on the ground with the local authorities and to support them to develop project proposals and business cases. And we also have members of the team who work thematically and across the whole of the hub geography on things like domestic retrofit and community energy. We have touched on things to do with EV charging and transport decarbonisation, but we do quite a lot of work, and increasingly more actually, with local area energy planning. And Calderdale Council actually is one of the trailblazers in our region that we've been proud to support with their pilot LEAP. And actually I think one of the things that's really interesting to consider is how EV fleet management and the kind of infrastructure that kind of needs to support that is very much part of a bigger ecosystem, bigger energy and net zero ecosystem. And actually understanding how all those pieces fit together is a challenge, massive challenge, but one that we're trying to grapple with and trying to support the local authorities to grapple with as well, and to look at and to kind of think in the round about how they can support that. But I think it's also worth referencing that the public sector on its own cannot achieve net zero, and that's also a very kind of embedded principle within the net zero hubs, that we exist to provide additional capacity and support to develop projects, but also to leverage in more commercial investment into net zero, because that is really the only way that we will get to net zero. And I know that one of the things that local authorities are grappling with in terms of that kind of EV infrastructure issue is how you kind of get the distribution. And obviously there are pockets of localities where it makes sense and maybe the market will come in sooner. So the local authorities are kind of having to almost forecast ahead and kind of pick up those kind of patterns of take up, but also dealing with the recognition that it's not just the investment in the infrastructure that they will be responsible with, but as technologies change and are superseded, it's the disposal, it's the changing kind of layouts of infrastructure that local authorities in particular need to be cognizant of down the line. Local authorities are all at slightly different places as well, I think, in terms of their planning, and very often it starts with their own fleets, and decarbonising those, and the ones that I suppose are making most progress with that tend to have that kind of stronger vision for further rollout. But you're absolutely right, that there will never be enough in the way of grants and public funding to do any of this. And I think one of the challenges actually for the public sector, and one of the challenges that we have is that there has been quite a heavy reliance on public sector funding, and particularly government funding coming in to deliver some of these strategies. And there will probably need to be a mind shift, and you referenced behaviour change in terms of at that kind of individual level of take-up of EV vehicles, but also a kind of behaviour change and ideology change within local government, especially I think in terms of how they view where funding comes from and how things are financed.
The issue we have at the minute is ensuring inclusivity and social value, which is obviously a big thing within public sector. At the minute, obviously, a lot of lower banded staff are priced out of vehicles because P11D value has gone. In 2019, my average P11D value was 18,000. The average P11D value of my order book today is 41,000.
Yeah.
So that just means it's not available for staff. So that's what we're working on now, and ensuring that the scheme maintains to be a staff benefit and not a financial income stream for the employer, by taking advantage and maintaining all of the NIC pass. So we're encouraging them to pass back the Class 1A and things like that to make the cars more cost efficient.
The biggest hurdle, I suppose, that we've had to overcome is culture change amongst the staff. A lot of the vehicles that we're getting now are automatics. We operate a small pool car fleet to try and reduce the cost of hire cars, because they've just shot through the roof. And the number of times we get people requesting to book a hire car for one of our pool cars and saying, it's not an automatic, is it? Because we can't drive an automatic. It's quite frightening actually, how many people out there who just are not confident to drive an automatic vehicle. So we give them a little appraisal and a free drive and stuff like that. But on the response side, more and more vehicles are going to automatics. So it's a culture change within the police service, which I don't think there's anybody else here from a policing background, is extremely difficult because people are really set in their ways. So that's one of the big hurdles that we're trying to get over as well. Good communications to people. That it's the way forward. You even have to get used to it, because we're not going to go back to manually transmitted clunky diesel vehicles. This is the way we're going forward. So we're working with our corporate communications department, our driver training team, just to reiterate the message about the culture change.
The headline that is hanging over the industry is 2040 and the purchase of diesel trucks will not be allowed. And how are our members getting ready for that? I feel Paul has teed me up far too generously. We'll see what I can do. I wouldn't use the word cynic, but I would say at the RHA, we would say that when it comes to electric, as things currently stand, the vehicles that are on the market combined with the supporting charging infrastructure is not fit for purpose to meet the needs of freight and logistics. I think a lot of our members are, it's not just the deadline of 2040, but the majority of our members are small, medium enterprises, and most have a fleet of 6 vehicles or fewer. And I always think haulage is almost a bit like farming. It's made up of a lot of small family businesses dotted across the country. And because of that family tie-in, the number of members I've spoke to that say, I want to do this for the grandkids. There's genuine desire and frustration to want to do something about this, but not knowing how, because a lot of members can't make that leap to electric yet.
We run a fleet of 27 HGVs and 4 vans. They do fundamentally 2 types of work. They do general haulage work, which is ploughing up and down the motorways, which is long hours, long mileage. And then we also do what's called pallet network work, which is last mile deliveries of pallets rather than parcels. I'd like to say that electric is a consideration. It's certainly something that's very much on the agenda in our industry, and I'm sure the gentleman's got far more information than I have. But currently, it's just so prohibitive to move that way. We've got lots of customers who have this idealised view of what they want. The commercial realities of it and the physical realities of it are a completely different view. There's nothing out there. Where we are starting to see electric percolating is with local vans. We do home deliveries of pallets, so low weight, a bathroom on a pallet or a set of tiles or something like that. So we do deliveries like that, where vehicles are doing sort of maybe 70 miles a day. We're starting to see electric coming on that, and that's being pushed. Clean air zones as they have in Bradford, so everything's Euro 6, the whole market's moved that way, so it's as efficient as it can be. We're starting to have conversations with customers about alternatives to electric, so biofuels where we can minimise carbon, that sort of idea. But again, unless I'm sadly mistaken and not supported for all right reasons, then it feels like it's a long way off in our industry.
A truck is like, it's like a cliche with a commercial airline, it's only making money if it's on the road. So if you're having to do a rapid recharge in the middle of the day and you're stuck at a service station, that's losing money. And this is, I'll probably talk a little more about this later, but we are in an economic climate where hauliers are struggling. And we had 500 hauliers go into administration last year purely because of the cost pressures they are facing. So every minute lost on the road really does count. I know that might sound a bit extreme, but it's true. We are excited about the net zero journey and how we can get there, but we're still in the early stages of that conversation. Because our members are looking to us for answers, and we have to say, well, we don't know yet because we haven't got the certainty yet from government in terms of where the mass investment's going to be. And there's a perpetual debate between hydrogen and electric. Now, unofficially, I can't see hydrogen coming forward in the way that there's already been massive progress with electric. But in terms of reassuring our members, we have to say, well, whatever comes forward and whatever suits the needs of our members, you know, we have to be open to that.
What's the tailpipe emission like? What's
10%, something like diesel.
So it would have been up below the 75?
Yeah.
So-
It's a 90% reduction in NOx emissions.
It makes everybody feel hungry. Smell McDonald's.
And it doesn't. And it doesn't do a lot for your engine of your vehicle, to be fair, but it's a step forward. It's a sort of a halfway step.
But that's achieving one of the scopes, which is the bigger,
Absolutely.
and that, which is basically your net zero.
It's a stepping,
So if
it's a stepping stone towards.
Absolutely, but people don't understand it. Everybody's besotted with electric being the only solution, and it's too big a leap for the whole engine industry to go from one to the other.
And mentally,
Everyone was besotted with electric.
if you're trying to put aside some capital to invest in a new electric vehicle, you think, well, I'm not going to bother with making that investment yet. I'm going to wait until I have to take the plunge. But equally, some people feel the opposite. They say, well, I can't wait and I want to do something now. I'm actually going to do HBO because I want to reduce some carbon and I want to do it now. And it really depends on who you speak to. But I agree, not enough people know about it. And I think it's partly an education piece. I think it's partly because a lot of businesses, they're very small and they've really not got the capacity to do anything other than load up a truck and send it out.
This afternoon we're going to be focused on charging infrastructure. This event has kindly been sponsored by E.ON, and we're joined today by Stephen Carroll from E.ON.
In terms of installs that E.ON have done already, so we've done about 5,500 home installs in the last couple of years, and about 1,200 B2B workplace installs as well. So we're certainly scaling, and our sort of ambition is to keep doubling year on year. And then in terms of charging and how you kind of refuel, if you've got vans or cars that attached to a workplace, it's workplace charging where we kind of start. So we've installed, starts off as a handful, just a couple, maybe 3 or 4 in each of our sites, and then that's kind of grown year on year to our old site pre-pandemic. We had like a whole front of our car park was all electric for vans and employees, and then we've relocated into a city centre now and I can't have access to them at all in the centre of Nottingham where we're from. But our head office is based in Coventry, but when we go there we've got again a full row of car parks for employees and vans or company car drivers as well. But we find that once you get past the workplace, the home charging then becomes, let's quickly try and align that, and then as you got past the very first steps, it's more around, actually, can we get a charger in the same time as the vehicle's delivered? With a bit of planning, it can work. So we've now got 300 plus drivers from the E.ON that's got a home charger that we calculate the reimbursement for. And that's started off as a very manual job, pulling data out of a back-end system and filtering. But that's now getting a little bit more very close to actually having a digital solution where a fleet manager can go into, log on, see all their drivers, see where they've charged. At the moment it's just for at home, but eventually our plans for the next few months are to show the home charging, the workplace charging and the public charging, so we get full transparency to fleet managers of where all the drivers have charged, and also any sort of carbon savings as part of that as well, and offsets. And then after you've got the home charger and the reimbursement data, it's probably the public ones for those that don't have off-street parking and they're very dependent, or even throughout the day if the van or car needs to do more miles than expected, where can they charge publicly? So again, we're looking at a roaming offer that just went live last week.
I think what we do have though is a partner financing company that we use to finance the asset, and it's essentially a finance lease model. So it's leased over a period of 3 or 5 years. You don't own the asset at the end, but you can buy it at the end for like a peppercorn payment. And in return then there is the reimbursement, shared revenues again on the charging income. So that is something we can facilitate.
EV chargers at both our sites in Leeds. We've got one in Central Leeds, one in Rawdon. We've got 6, but we're looking to extend the ones at Rawdon, so we are actually working with E.ON at the moment. We've got some quotes from E.ON at the moment, and we're looking to put another 4 in, but we're looking at maybe 2 more 7.4 kilowatts and then a 22 kilowatts, because we don't have the capacity for anything bigger. So we are on the journey, and it is an education, because it's kind of telling your employees you're moving to electric, and it is quite scary. And everybody's like, we do too many miles. But the people that have transitioned have actually said, I would not move back to a car, you know. I mean, we've got a lot of people in London where the infrastructure is really good. We've got Northern Ireland where the infrastructure is poor. Yeah. So we kind of have to cross that bridge when he gets his car. We're using a EV card at the moment, and they said, oh yeah, we've got the main network. When we've come to it, they don't. So we're kind of looking, do we have to go out and get more EV cards with different companies, because they don't have the network, they don't have Pod Point, which are a lot of the sites that you're using. So employees are having to pay for their own, which isn't ideal when we provide a car. We also have the home charge as well. So employees have home charge, which all electric charging will be charged back to EMIS. So then it'll be calculated on their mileage each month. So we kind of did that so that they're not out of pocket, because it's quite difficult if you've got home charge to see what you've spent on your home charge.
Reimbursement is a whole.
So that's what we're not forcing people, because obviously some people can't have home chargers, and that's you know, they live in London in a flat or whichever. But we are helping out by giving loans out for our electric chargers as well.
Smart chargers, we're lucky enough to have 1 per van, but going forward we know that we don't have the depot space and the grid capacity to be able to have one charger per vehicle. So gathering ideas and doing a bit of research is where we're at on finding where we can go for the next hurdle.
I think if you can come back to depot or to home, charge overnight, that seems to be the most sensible route. Whether it's a passenger vehicle or a van or that commercial vehicle, I think it's the same approach. And also then this is where smart charging and scheduling comes in nicely. So again, to cut costs even further, we know it's normally cheaper, greener, cleaner to charge overnight. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And one of the other sort of trials I'm trying to kick off this year is that ability to fleet of vans go back to depot and using the battery capability within there to power the building if needed, and even beyond that back to the grid, and then ensuring that those vans are ready for 8 o'clock or whenever you schedule it for to be 80% full, to be able to do a 70-80 mile drop the following day, whatever's needed. So we're just looking at some of those opportunities in.
So the smart charging technology that we have, and I'm assuming it operates in a similar sort of way there, is that it can be remotely accessed, and we have it 24/7 monitored. So if that happens during the night, then our provider will see that, it will get an alert, and they can remotely reboot the charger, so it will continue its charge.
And is this something as well about whether you go for a unit that's got a SIM card in it or whether you go for Ethernet? Do you have those options?
Yeah, so there's wireless Wi-Fi ones as well, and then even some things that I saw quite recently is that we're bringing in is that ability to look for a fault, such as drop signal or Wi-Fi disconnect or anything, and then reboot and start again. So the artificial intelligence was just, wow, did you realise that was there? But yeah, we've got that as part of some of the capabilities now that can trigger that. So look for the most common faults that stops the charge and then re-kicks back in.
The biggest issues we have is infrastructure for vans. Vans aren't really a problem for the main, it's the infrastructure and charging that's a problem, which we can go on later on. My role really is strategy and planning, but I'm overall responsible for everything related to fleet, for drivers, for competencies and training.
If it's salary sacrifice, we can obviously work with them, with the suppliers, to be able to actually install chargers. If it's a new scheme that's come to us, or someone that we've launched recently, so this time last year we launched West Mercia Police, and it was the very first salary sacrifice that they'd offered and things like that. So what we did to encourage uptake was, for the first year, every ULEV vehicle, obviously including them, they got free home charging installed as part of the scheme.
We've also got some regulations in the UK with chargers. When we install, they have a random delay, so they have a delay of up to 10 minutes, which varies every time you plug in, and that's just to protect the grid. So if everyone wants to plug in at the same time, we can look for not everybody surging at the same time. That's one, and the ability for the smart charging came in the regulations in November. So every charger now should have that scheduling capability now.
There's a number of vehicles that, like you said, they will charge up to like 11 kilowatts, and then the newer ones now are up to 22 kilowatts on it. So
If you pay a premium for...
It's on the premium badges at the minute, but
Yeah.
it will trickle down. Well, that's where you sort of look at.
Yeah.
We put a lot of 7.5s on the 22. The next build we will do will be over 22, because it's going towards the future. At the minute, there's not that much difference in the cost of the 22 against the 7. So you might as well put the 22 and build, like you said, build it for the future.
Yeah.
Can I just ask about the bi-directional charging thing? How feasible that is? It just strikes me that if you have a business where you can charge your vehicles at night, use them in the day, but any excess is then sold back at a higher price than you bought it for. I don't know the pricing, but is there any of that happening, or is that something that has potential to return stuff to the grid that you haven't used in the day?
Yeah, I think my view is definitely potential there. Vehicles need to be enabling that direct connection backwards and forwards, which is, there's not many vehicles available today in 2023 at least that's there. I think some new models in 24, but I don't know what they are. There's that, and then I think you've got the hardware. A lot of the hardware that's out there today, it's not fit for that. So those technologies are there, and there's a lot of prototypes around to test. But it's not just the hardware and the vehicle. Then you've got your site needs to have the right metering and layout. They need some kind of software for the scheduling, which is probably the easier bit. But when you start to pull that together and package it up as a sellable offer, then it becomes, that's why it's not there yet.
One thing that's been made quite clear, I've had meetings with various sustainability groups in force and so on, is that we can't do this on our own as a police service, whether we're standalone or whether we're regional with our regional colleagues, and that partnership working is key to making this work. We can purchase our own vehicles, but the infrastructure side of it is probably far more important than just buying the car in itself or whatever it is. So we've already started conversations with Stockton Borough Council and Hartlepool Borough Council around just a conversation starter, really, in terms of what are they doing, what are we doing, is there any crossovers, can we link in and piggyback what you're doing. So I'm particularly keen when you mentioned about, and I've written it down, local authorities mainly. My ears were pricking up when you see if you were going to talk about blue light services, because obviously that's my field. As to whether you're going to support local authorities with investment, whether that's financial investment, technical investment or whatever, whether we can then come in through the side door, as it were, to join in with that as well. Because what we found is that regionally, and we're from number 2 region, which covers all the Yorkshire forces, Humberside, ourselves, Durham and Northumbria, that everybody's doing different things, of course, and we have to have a collaborative approach with it. Everybody can't just plough their own furrow, because coming to events like this, you pick up on all sorts of new ideas, new technology, signposting the different people who can help, and we meet as a region, as a fleet managers association regionally. We've got one in April, so I'm keen to try and get as much backdrop on it, so I can take to that meeting and say, right, this is what I've discovered, what have you done, so we can share those ideas regionally.
I'm sat on the other side of the fence there, and I'm thinking, I would love to work with the blue light services and with the NHS, because our council is not dissimilar to any other council. Our estate is shrinking. You know, we're selling off assets because we've no money, so we're saving money that way. But at the same time, what they're doing is taking away fleet infrastructure for me to where I can potentially put chargers.
Mm-hmm.
So our model is going to be pretty much overnight charging, because all our vehicles are out during the day. Or police working shifts, why not utilise our chargers?
Yep.
While they're still there empty.
Yeah.
You're right, and one of the things that's been sort of bandied around where we are is Stagecoach Bus Company, that there might be an opportunity to piggyback onto their charges, because the buses are out during the day, taking passengers here, there and everywhere, and largely they come back on an evening and plug in. So can we go during the day? It's certainly worth having that conversation. Are you with West Yorkshire sort of
West
region?
Yorkshire, yeah.
So it's certainly worth having the conversation with West Yorkshire Fleet. And if we have a chat later, I can put you in touch with who I know at West Yorkshire, definitely.
I can do the same, because I do some of this car provision as well.
Yeah.
So we've got sustainability contact, the same with Colchester and Huddersfield. I can open a lot of doors with a number of users that will be within your area, that public sector.
Local authorities have such a key role to play in enabling this infrastructure, even if they're not the ones who deliver it. So we're doing a piece of work where makes for some very good bedtime reading. We're trying to go through lots of the local plans in councils throughout England, just to see what they're saying about freight. And spoilers, it's not much. Now, that's an issue for us if we're trying to advocate for, say, a lorry park in the region and a local plan doesn't feature that, then of course it's going to be hard to get planning permission if an application comes forward. But hot on the heels of something like lorry parking is EV charging. So we're trying to think of ways of engaging with local authorities to say, this is coming, and I think you do need to start articulating in your spatial plans room for this infrastructure to come forward, even if you're not the ones who are delivering it.